preparing to go live. Setting up. Perfect. There we are. So we are live on YouTube. Hello, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hello, hello. I'm going to record this because last time I didn't record it and I'm still trying to sort out that recording.
Oh.
Listen, you can't, you just can't pretend to be what you're not. That's all I'm going to say.
No,
Not
absolutely
all
not.
of us are Shelley Shulman, as Rochelle said earlier on. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to the panel. Today, we have got a very interesting topic. Put comments in. We'll go back and keep on checking the comments to see, and we'll respond accordingly. I need to introduce everybody to you. We have got our guest panelist today, Shelley Shulman.
Hello, hello.
Now, if you've not met Shelley, where have you been? Shelley is an online business expert. Anything you need to know about online business, speak to Shelley Shulman.
Yeah.
And she is an authority on this conversation that we're going to be having today as well. But she's also a very good friend, just as the other two ladies. We have got EJ McDougall, and she's just decided to go away from the camera.
I'm
Hello,
here.
my
I'm
God.
here.
As you know, EJ is a speaker, a magistrate, an HR professional, single mum. She does it all, basically. And soon to be my future sister-in-law, if I've got anything to do with it.
Fingers crossed, Vicky. We're going to find that man.
And we have Rochelle Gilburn, who is, oh my goodness, what isn't she? She is a LinkedIn whiz as well as a property whiz, and she's doing some incredible things. She's also my accountability partner as well, which she doesn't get paid to do, by the way, and stuff. So
Just like we chat for hours every week.
yeah, and try and get ourselves on track with everything and stuff. So yes, and of course, I am Victoria Dio. I am here to help heal all of you one person at a time by using intuition and purpose to make sure that you can fall in love with your life again because that is what you deserve. Now, today, by the way, we are here every Wednesday at 12 o'clock on unless otherwise informed. We are missing Liz Bateson today because she's double booked. She was so upset last night, bless her. I was like, seriously, don't worry about it. We'll get a guest panelist in. So, and as life has it, it works out in a great way. So today we are talking about mental health. Um, I've spoken to each of you individually, and we've all had moments where it's impacted us. It's also something that we don't talk about often enough. Even though it is now become, I call it sexy. And when I say sexy, not in a great way, but it's become acceptable and almost palatable to say, but still, it can be quite isolating.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to you, Shelley, first, because I know you've experienced this and we've had really in-depth conversations. And it's also not my story to tell. How has mental health affected you?
So I have lived with mental health. I don't like to say suffer from mental health. I like to say I live with mental health, and I have lived with it personally since my eldest was born. So that was the year 2000. I suffered from postnatal depression. I was really quite bad with it. And then later on in life, I was diagnosed with bipolar, depression, anxiety. So I now take happy pills, as I call them, my happy pills. But it has been something that I've lived with for a long time because my dad's also had mental health issues, as did my mum. They both exhibited them in different ways, but it was something I was bound to inherit. You know, most people get a house, a car. I get mental health issues. Very kind of them. And it has been something that it has taken me a long time to not come to terms with, but to learn how to manage. And I think a lot of people, I've had therapy. The first time I had therapy, it didn't work for me. But what I have learned is that actually, yes, I take my happy pills. That's fantastic. But there's also other work to do. So it's things like changing the external influences if if you can. So I remove certain people from my surroundings. I am very vocal with my family. If I'm having a bad day, leave me alone. And it's that mutual respect of understanding what everybody in the household needs and what will affect them. It has, been awful. There are days where I feel absolutely awful for my children for some of the things that they have had to witness me do.
Yeah.
In the depth of my mental health. At one point, the crisis team was called. I was very disappointed they didn't take me away. I thought I was going to get a break. So there is that guilt there that because I wasn't dealing with it or handling it, however we want to talk with it, like it impacted on them so much.
Right.
And they saw things that I wouldn't have wanted them to see, almost in the same way as I saw things as a child or an adult that I didn't want to see my parents go through. But I'm happy to say, like, I'm not on the other side, but it's managed a lot better now. I'm so much happier. I have many, many, many more good days than I do bad days. And if I have a bad day, I'm able to be open, be honest, to ride it out and just take myself off to bed and deal with it and get up and just say, okay, that's fine. Tomorrow's another day.
Thank you. Thanks for being so honest about that as well, because I know I don't want to say it's not easy, because I guess that you get to a point where when you've spoken about it enough, it becomes something that you can have a conversation, but it's still putting it out there, and this is recorded, so it'll always be there. Does that make sense and stuff like if
It
anybody
does. I think it's something that we have to talk about.
Yeah.
And I like to be open about it. So I think if I can be open about it and help one more person and make it okay for one more person to talk about it, then that's okay. I've had close family members who have really struggled with their mental health, and they still deal with this stigma of the fact that they don't want to take tablets, they don't want to go to the doctors, they don't want to go to therapy. And even though I'm really open about it, and I'm just like, well, why don't you take the tablets? Take the tablets. From my point of view, if you had cancer, you wouldn't say, no, I don't want chemo. Take the tablets. That's what it's there for. But I do think that the more open we are about it, the easier it is for other people to know it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah, yeah, I like that phrase. It's okay not to be okay. We had Johnny Seifert on the Intuitive Leadership Summit, which we were all part of, and the title of his talk was "It's Okay Not to Be Okay." EJ, we know that you've not got long on here because you've got an early exit. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I'm African and I'm Nigerian, and I've had to unlearn so many things. I mean, I'm African and I moved to the UK as a full-grown adult. So I come from a community that I grew up almost believing that having mental health issues is a luxury. There's like real problems out there, and you're here saying you're sad. This is the way we're brought up. So there are people from where I grew up till today. If I say, oh, I'm feeling a bit down, get on with it. I'm depressed. You're not depressed. Jesus will heal you. Those kind of. So that there is that unlearning that I've had to do, which means that now, because I have children, and I have to acknowledge when they're feeling a bit down. I have to, remove that whole get on with it ethos. I have to unlearn that. And just like you, Shirley, when I had my first child, she was born 3 months early. So we were in hospital for a few months. She came out and she was on oxygen for many, many months. And we had all of that going on. And the hospital where I live is so good that they put me at the front of the list for counselling. And was it CBT? CBT?
Yeah.
And I can't say it worked for me because I didn't go there for it to work. I went there to tick a box. I attended, and she would say things like, so what's the level of fear that brings up for you? And if I say 2, then I could go home quicker. If I said 10, they should be like, oh, there's a lot of fear. So I just sort of led the method to get out of the process. And I don't think I would openly admit to my parents or openly admit to somebody from where I grew up to say, I have I'm struggling with my mental health. It's not something I see people do it, like, like Shelley, you've been so open, and I've just felt, wow, that's made me feel validated when I hear other people talk about these struggles, and I hear that they're able to live life and they're able to get on with it in the right way with the right amount of support. That makes me really happy. But I am not quite there yet. I'm not quite at the point where I can openly say to someone, I mean, it's the same with neurodivergence. I know I'm on the spectrum, but I will never go and get diagnosed because it's not what we do. So I'm here really to hear what you ladies have to say, because I'm on that journey to acknowledging that mental health is equally as valid and as important as physical health.
Yeah.
Love that. Rochelle.
Okay, where do I start? The thing that comes to mind for me is, so I feel like the majority of my life I've had quite strong mental health, but at one stage when I was about 21, my nan passed away. I was in a difficult relationship. I was probably I suppose 21 is a big transitioning stage of being like a child into like having a full-time job, having the pressures of everything else on top of me, and I was just really, really down, crying all the time. So I went to the doctors. Victoria was telling me off earlier because I should have gone to the doctors because I banged my head and got concussion the other day, and I'm not very I'm the opposite. I hate going to the doctors. If I can avoid it, I'll avoid it at all costs. So my mum practically forced me to the doctors, and they gave me tablets, and they gave me counselling, and I hated the counsellor. I felt like her life was more chaotic than mine, and I was like, who are you to try and teach me how to be happier when you don't seem to have all your stuff together yourself? And at one time I was going to be late for work, and that was causing more anxiety going to counselling because I didn't want to have to explain to work that I was going through this state of depression. So I'd asked her if we could do the appointment earlier, and she said, yeah, no problem, I'll be there for 8:30. And I arrived at 8:30 and she didn't turn up until 9. So by that point I just I was ready to sort of explode, and it weren't a good experience. So I went back and I got the cognitive behavioral therapy, which worked a little bit better. I quite liked like the sort of the ethos of it, and the woman who is doing it was much she seemed like she got a life together, so I was more willing to take the advice from her. But it's still the tablets and the combination of this, I still didn't feel like I was back to my old self. I can remember actually going in to see my doctor, and I had the same doctor from being born to being about 23, 24. Anymore, but he knew me, and when I went in he was like, you always come in and you're smiling even when you're not feeling good, and it was like, I can tell you're not yourself. But despite all these like medical interventions, I ended up going and getting hypnotism and lifetime therapy. So my mum had been to see somebody, and it was for her to stop smoking, and she just literally walked out of there having smoked for 20 odd years, now being a non-smoker. So he offered the timeline therapy. I went there and I came out, and it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, and all of a sudden I was noticing like the blue sky and all the positives that I'd got in my life. And it didn't take away, like, my nan had still died, I was still in a difficult relationship, but it just made it easier to deal with with those things. And I do think that having that intervention at that time has then helped me going forward in dealing with other things. Like last week I talked about when my husband passed away, and obviously that was a massive trauma, and I think while some of it was dealt with by bottling it up, I think also just the positive, I don't want to say positive outlook, because I think that doesn't take away from the bad things that happen, but that realizing like life's too short and we need to make the most of it, and everyone's doing the best that they can with what they've been dealt.
Yeah. See, I've got a bit of, I think, everybody in here and stuff. So when EJ says that I'm African, I am, that's where my forefathers are from. And even now, I know some Cameroonians who, when you say, well, they're struggling mentally, they go, what mentally and stuff, they're like, that's just an excuse. And it's not seen as it's almost like shameful if you
It's
say
like you
that you've got
failed.
yeah,
It's a failure, isn't
it's
it?
a failure. So it gets rubbished quite a lot. And
Hmm.
then they're scared. No, not scared. Then they're shocked when somebody takes their own life. And they
Yeah.
go, God, what would have happened? Because again, that's also a taboo. It's almost like, oh my God, what could have happened? It's like because nobody listened to them when they were
Yeah.
crying for help and what have you. So there's a lot of that. So with mental health comes the shame, the guilt, and everything else. And also, as someone who, I'm a single woman. So it's like when you get to those stages and stuff, there's nobody to talk to. And in my experience, it's like, well, who do I speak to? And when I say who do I speak to, it's not just about having a friend to speak to, it's about having somebody that will understand. So I went through something last year where that was it was probably the most trickiest year of my life last year. And at one point, I remember driving and just crying and just like literally just sobbing. And I was like, and I could think, but I was like, I know I need to talk to someone. And I know I need to speak to someone who I knew what I needed. I basically needed a me, right? And I say this to
Mhm.
my friends and they laugh at me. I'm like, I needed a me to literally hold a space. And I didn't know anybody who could hold that space. So I rang my doctor and I said, listen, I need to talk to someone because I feel like everything's falling on top of me and stuff. And it wasn't about necessarily, yes, it was mental and yes, it was health, but it was literally, I just needed somebody to tell me that there's somebody who is specialized to speak to someone. And when I went to see my doctor, straight away they were like, and how does that make you feel? If you want to wind me up, ask me that question. If you want to wind me up, ask me that question. Because to me, that's the question that you ask when you don't know what else to say.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
the question and to me, I believe that, and I know that not everybody can be of that level, but and this is where intuition comes in. I believe that you need to be able to lean into somebody to be able to navigate your way through them without having experienced mental health. And what I realized that the questions that were being asked of me were really textbook questions.
Mm.
And if you've met me and you've spent time with you, you know I ain't textbook. I ain't textbook. I'm all heart and soul. You can't, if you do textbook with me, I'm off. So that was, and then he went around and nobody knows this, but actually went and goes, oh, so I'm going to prescribe you some
Oh.
antidepressants. And I was like, what for? And he was like, well, what, just from listening to you and stuff, it sounds like, but you've not bothered to. So anyway, he got me the prescription, and I actually went and got the prescription, and I got it, and I put it on my desk and stuff, and I thought it was more like a test. It was more like a test because as soon as I had that conversation, what dawned on me was you're not going to get the help where you think you're seeking it. So I had to go back to what I know, which is healing. And I went through my protocols, and in pranic healing, there is a mental health protocol. And I started working on myself. And do you know what? Like like Rochelle said, it didn't change what had happened, but a lot of things become a lot clearer, and I was able to move forward. Now, did I get to speak to somebody? No. However, I also believe that anything that happens in your life happens because you can use it to help somebody else. Like Shirley says, if I can help somebody else here to start talking about their mental health issue, then even the better. But what was really sad was that not everybody has access to pranic healing, or they don't think they do. And I'm
Mhm.
here to say that you do have access to pranic healing. So message me. There's loads of us around the country or around the world. But also the fact that it's okay not to be okay with regards to it may not necessarily be a mental health issue. It may just be that you're having a bad day. It may
Yeah.
also be that um you're going through perimenopause. Like I found that perimenopause has dragged me through the gutters. And actually I think I've had a great experience, but other people have who've experienced perimenopause have really struggled. So with that and also being able to stand and still do your job, because last year I hardly did anything. I was either tired, um, emotional, couldn't getting brain fog and all those sorts. And tying it in with perimenopause makes it even a more sticky situation. So
Mm.
that's how I experienced it. And the reason why I wanted to talk about it today, it was mentioned on Loose Women yesterday. Denise Welsh, I saw her on a clip, bless her, and I absolutely adore that woman. I know she's going through a really tough time, but also a lot of us we're all very smiley people,
Yeah.
aren't we? We're very smiley
Mm.
people.
Mm.
So I wanted to debunk that myth that just because we're smiling, it doesn't mean that we're not going through our own stuff.
Mm.
So moving forward, um I'll go to EJ first and stuff. Um, what is your biggest takeaway with dealing with mental health, especially because you're a mom, you're a single mom.
Mhm.
What are the things that you keep that help you keep on top of things
Yeah.
at home?
So in terms of, I've started trying to, I'm not a very routine kind of person and I'm not a very organized person, but I'm trying to live more naturally. And what I mean by that is I'm trying to live cyclically.
Mm-hmm.
Cyclical living is a concept I've come across recently where, so usually by now, I'll be completely downcast that my New Year's resolution have all disappeared. Yeah. But
Mm,
then I came across this concept where actually, do you know what? It's not natural. Our Gregorian calendar, where January is the beginning of the year, actually does not make sense. We're still in hibernation.
mm,
Nature is still in hibernation. So
eh,
I'm ready to burst out during spring. So during these winter months, if I'm feeling a bit down, a bit gloomy, I'm not as productive as I usually am, I'm no longer so hard on myself, and I'm not striving to try and overcome it as much as I used to because I'm a natural being. I am
mm,
still in hibernation. In
mm,
spring, as we're coming into spring now, my energy is going to grow and I'm going to try and get things done. But then also using my cycle, I'm trying to be more in tune with my cycle as a woman because I know that during ovulation, I'm going to feel pretty. I'm going to feel like a go-getter. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do. But also I'm learning that during after ovulation, when there's a surge of is it progesterone, then I might become a bit more snappy at my kids. I might become a bit more short-tempered, and I feel like I'm the ugliest person on the planet. So I'm trying to not be hard on myself and to recognize as a natural being, as an,
mm,
in the nicest possible way, as an animal who
Yeah.
lives on this planet Earth. I need to be in tune. I'm trying to learn to be in tune with all of that. So on days when I'm feeling down, I like to identify what it is. Am I feeling
mm,
down because of my cycle? Has there been a specific trigger? Has
mm,
something happened, to make me feel this way? Has somebody said something? Has something not happened? So that's my biggest tip. If I was to give anybody a tip based on this issue, is put a name to it. What is the
mm,
problem? Because sometimes we're just like down and we hate the world and it's just rubbish.
mm,
And that's valid. But if you want to help yourself, you want to be gentle with yourself, and you want to find a way out of that phase, is to name it. Sometimes I say to myself, I'm just feeling down because I'm feeling down today.
Mm.
So therefore, I'm just going to do whatever makes me feel better today. Tomorrow, I may feel like drinking water, being productive, doing a career thing, whatever, be a go-getter, super mom. Tomorrow might be that day, but today is not today. But for me, I need to put a name to what the situation is. And once I put a name to it, then I find that usually if I know what it is, then usually I have an idea where the solution could come from.
I like that. Shelley?
It's a weird one for me. So obviously I had quite a traumatic year last year. Stuff happened and it impacted my family quite a lot. And we've all had to navigate our way through that. But I saw an interesting post on social media today, and it was talking about mental health days. Like EJ said, we have those days where we're just not productive. We don't want to do it. But I almost feel like they've kind of been hijacked. I think because I'm self-employed now, I can take a step back and go, do you know what? I'm not going to be productive today, so I'm just going to put a pin in it and come back tomorrow. But I do sometimes think that if you're employed, you don't necessarily have that same luxury. And it's finding that happy balance of explaining to an employer, look, I'm not great today, but if you give me a break today, I'll be better tomorrow. But if you don't give me a break today and you make me try and push through it, then I'm not going to be productive tomorrow or the day after or the day after that. And I think it is about being kind to yourself. So, like I say, we had a bad year as a family last year, and I've let my family feel all of the feels. I'm a big believer, and thanks to my dad, I guess I'm blessed that my dad had mental health issues because it paved the way for me to deal with them properly. And my dad always used to, if I was crying, my dad was like, "That's a good thing. It's good that you're crying. Get them out." And so I now do the same with my own girls. One of them is in therapy now. Thank God for everything that went on. And like she's finding it difficult. Like, how do you feel? How does that make you feel? She's finding all of that a bit difficult. But I think you just have to be kind to yourself. If you are having a bad day, you're having a bad day. And yet do name it. Do go, well, okay, well, because if you can work out what it is that's made you feel like that, then you've got the opportunity to change it. So it doesn't happen again. Like I say, I got rid of a load of people in my space. There's some people that I can't get rid of, but I limit then the time that I spend with them. If I know they're particularly negative or they're not nice, then do you know what? I just limit the time that I spend with them. But I think you do have to, I know that I'll put your own oxygen mask on before you help other people. It gets thrown about quite a lot. But I think it does apply, but we just need to be careful that we're not just throwing, oh, I'm going to have a mental health day out there just so that people think, oh, we're going to lie on the sofa, watch Netflix, and we're just being lazy. I think people need to learn that it is a productive thing and it does have a place. We just need to be careful not to abuse it because we've been so open about mental health now. It'd be awful to take those steps back and people just use it as those excuses.
I like that. Rochelle?
Yeah, I think EJ's got to go now, haven't you? So bye.
That's all love.
So one of the things that I was just thinking about then was like, so obviously talked about this experience when I was 21 and it didn't make me completely happy for the rest of my life. Like property, business, all of it, it's a roller coaster journey, and there will be periods where I'm feeling particularly down. And similar to what EJ was saying, then one of the things that I've realized is the week before my period is always an absolute wipeout. Like I'm very rarely productive that week. I feel drained. I feel frustrated. So now I'm trying to write, if I've got anything important, let's plan it for the week after my period, and I can use all that momentum then to build everything up so that I'm making the most of that time. And then also, like, I feel like I'm very much entering spring in terms of, like, in our lives we do go through periods where things are darker and bad things are happening, and like I lost a significant amount of money. Business was difficult, and it was a difficult pit to work myself out of. But I am a big believer in that we've just got to try our best to help ourselves. No one else is coming to save us, so it's just starting to do those little things, like what little thing can I do today that's going to help me to get a little bit further out of that pit. Like I've never been I don't class myself as the hardest worker. I like to do small, meaningful things that are going to build
Yeah.
momentum, rather than having to think, right, I'm going to sit at my desk and force myself to work and do all this work all day when I'm not feeling in that mood and that motivated. And going back to like the talking about being employed and the difference between being employed and not being able to take that time off because you're feeling that pressure from the job. But then I think there's the same pressure in business where I go, well, if I don't work, I'm having a bad week. If I don't work, I've not got that luxury of being able to say I need to have some time off work. If I have time off, there's people not getting paid, there's jobs not delivered, my bills are not getting paid. So there's a whole different level of pressure in that self-employed world. So it's getting the balance between them both. But I always find that a good, I'm not very good at talking when I'm feeling down. I tend to bottle it up more. But I always know once I do have a good conversation and I'll let it out and maybe a good cry, then all of a sudden that weight's lifted off my shoulders. Last year, after I lost the significant amount of money, it was a difficult time for me. And what I noticed was I was very lonely. And Victoria knows this through our accountability. And it was my partner was working every weekend, and I felt like I was barely seeing him. And the shift in me since he stopped working, like having the conversation, he stopped working all weekend. We spend more time together, and all of a sudden I'm feeling happier. And you don't want to rely on other people to bring happiness into your life, but at the same time it's recognizing those things, like, why am I feeling so down at the moment? What would help that? How can I lean on other people for that support? I'm in the house all day on my own doing my business, and then he wasn't getting home until late, and then he was out at the weekends, and I felt like we were stuck in a bit of a rut with it. So like I feel like he's now happier, I'm happier, the kids are happier because we're both happier, and it's that knock-on effect of how you can impact all those people around you.
I love that. So I'm going to come from a completely different perspective. So, so this is how, first and foremost, I think we need to be a lot stronger. And we also need to realize that we have the resilience that we keep on looking for.
Yeah.
What does that mean? I'm not saying that mental health isn't mental health, but like Shelley says, it shouldn't just be, oh, I need to rest and watch Netflix and stuff. It's like, really be honest with yourself. Like, is this something is this something that you're running away from? As in, or is there something that you're running away from? Or is this seriously your mental health? And I think so. I think we've become a generation where our pain threshold is really low. So it's like, all of a sudden we're overwhelmed. Like the number of times I get people say to me, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed, I'm overwhelmed. And I'm thinking, are you overwhelmed, or is it just that you're busy? You don't know where to start. Does that make sense, Steph? And I'm not saying,
Yeah.
and I get it. I get that people can become overwhelmed, but I'm saying, are you overwhelmed? Have you looked at it and thought, this is definitely overwhelmed? And like EJ says, label it.
Yes.
Or is it you just looking at this going, oh my God, that's a lot of work?
And
Because
people don't have the tools though, do they? I think people, and one of the things I was very grateful for, I went for therapy last year, and my therapist gave me so many different tools, and she called it a toolbox.
mm,
And like you say, some people don't have the tools to take it back, whether that's journaling, whether that's whatever it is that you may
mm,
use, to take that step back and go, because I have moments where I go, I'm just over, it's too much, I'm overstimulated, I'm overwhelmed. I'm not overwhelmed. What I need to do is take a step back and go, yes, there's a lot of stuff on my to-do list, isn't there always? But I just need a plan.
yeah.
And I get some people can't get out of that. I do understand that. But sometimes we need those tools. And I think people sometimes are just lacking those tools or that knowledge to go, right, what do I need to do? For me, I need to take, it may sound completely alien to people, but if I'm really, really busy, I need to stop. I'm more productive if I stop what I'm doing and go away and ironically watch Netflix or something for an hour
Yeah.
to switch off and then come back than I am if I keep pushing through.
Yeah.
If I keep
Mine is
pushing through
friends.
everything.
Yeah, mine is friends. It's like
Yeah.
if I feel like I'm hitting a low or I feel like I need a break, I make an effort not to work when I'm feeling down.
Yeah.
And so, from an energetic perspective, if you do that, then you're putting all that negative energy into the work that you're creating, which doesn't help. So that's a tip there for you. So yeah, so for me, it's about people owning their resilience. Then there's also food as well. So, I always talk about my heal method. Food, I think, is really important. The less processed your food, the more clearer your mental health will be. If you are looking at processed foods and if there's anything in your kitchen that you can leave in your kitchen after cooked and it can stay there for an extra like 2 weeks and not go off, there's a problem, right? Go fresh, 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 fresh. The fresher the food, the better. It definitely does help. It clears your mind energetically. It's so much better than processed food. I know some people can't afford it and stuff, but if you go to like a local market, the produce there is even cheaper than what you can get in the supermarket. So that's one tip I would always say, and that's something that I really make an effort doing at my home is fresh food no matter what. And it doesn't mean that you can't cook the food. It just means that, choose, I don't know, even and it's not about carbs or proteins here. So I would say choose a potato over pasta.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the potato is still fresh, pasta's not. And stuff. You don't, it's like you could go all the way down and find out where those potatoes were planted and harvested. You'll never be able to find out where the different ingredients that make the pasta came from because they're a processed foods. Um, and then what else was I going to say? There's also the fact that sometimes the energy that you're feeling, so you feeling down, it's not yours. What does this mean?
Yeah.
You could walk past somebody and somebody is down and that energy and aura is so high and so potent that it can impact you and you feel down and you don't know why. And you go, I was smiling 2 minutes ago. Why do I feel down all of a sudden? It's a really, if you ever struggle, let me know. But it's a really something to be aware of. It's not always yours. It's not always your pain. It's not always your mental health. It could be somebody else's that you have energetically inherited or you've been infected or contaminated and you don't even realize. So and then you panic because you think, oh, so
Khloe Kardashian actually raised a good point about that in a book that she wrote many moons ago.
mm,
And she said something about road rage. And
mm,
she said there's like a road rage, like you drive in, somebody has a go at you on the road, and then you're suddenly like, well, what did I do? Because
yeah,
I've got road rage is like, well, I didn't do anything wrong. They were just having a bad day. And then they take that bad day out on you, and then that in turn gets you more anxious.
mhm,
So then you end up driving badly or whatever. And it was a really interesting way of looking at it. Like, don't let somebody else's bad mood control your day.
mm,
And I think we are guilty of that. And so that's why if I know I'm having a bad day, I'm very open with the family
mm,
to just say, look, just leave me alone, not because I don't want to do something I'll regret, but also I don't want my mood to impact your day. And I find that a lot in my house because we've got a
mm.
lot of different personalities. Victoria will know. And I try really hard. If I know they're in a bad mood, I try and distance myself, not because I don't care.
Yeah,
It's not that I don't care, I don't love them. It's just that, like you say, my energy level is at a certain point, and I don't want to absorb that. I need to go on. So I just can't be around that energy. Not in that I don't love them way, just in that I've got to look after myself.
yeah, you've got to protect your energy, but
Yeah.
sometimes you may not even know that you're feeling down
Yeah.
and they can get contaminated by it, which is why, again, I can't talk about pranic healing enough. It's like I always say to people, always lean into pranic healing, if nothing else, to understand how it can help you. There's other tools out there, but the one that I've tried and tested has been pranic healing, and it's made a huge amount of difference. Also, lastly, I also wanted to say, um, we need to stop making people feel guilty because they're experiencing mental health.
Yes.
So there are people out there who pretend they don't have mental health. Um, I know quite a few who pretend they never have down days and everything else. And and again, that's a shame thing. But then they also make other people feel bad for experiencing it. And we need to find a way not just to say that we're being compassionate, but to act compassionately, um, and guide people into a space where they can get looked after.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why everything that I teach, I didn't bring it with me, but I always bring um my crystal or my hands, and also, and I also have a bucket of salt, and I will do healings even on courses, because there are times when people just ain't feeling it. And if we can take that energy out and clear up the space so that you can go out there and achieve what you want to, I think that's all we're looking for.
Yeah. It is. I think, I think be kind, again, a phrase that gets bandied around a lot, ironically said by people who then troll others on the internet normally. Normally that's their subtitle, isn't it? Be kind,
Be
while I sit there and
kind.
go like that.
Yes.
But I think your one interaction with somebody that day can make such a huge difference. And I did it. I went out with my sister to go and see a show the other week, and there were a couple of people who were sat apart. I had a spare seat. I said, look, do you want to, if I move up, you can come and sit next to each other. And I know that that made their day. And
Mm,
then when we were sat in the train on the way home, there was a person opposite me crying. And I just reached over and I just gave her a tissue.
mm,
I didn't say anything to her, didn't film it to put on social media, didn't do anything. I just, because I think that one interaction, I don't need to know why she was crying. That's not my business. But that one interaction from one human to another can make such a difference to someone's mood. That little text that just, and I text people every so often. Like I've got a friend who I'll text in, and every so often I go, mental health check.
yeah.
Just mental health check, just making sure you're okay. And that's not me being nosy. That's not me wanting to know if they're down, or I don't need them to open up. That's just me saying, just give your mental health a check. If it's not okay, do something about it. It's just that reminder to just check in with themselves, because I think we get caught up on a treadmill and we just go and go and go and go and go, and we don't experience our own feelings. We're just
Mm.
caught up in everybody else's. And I think it is really, really important, like you say, those friends that just reach out every so often. It doesn't need to be anything, just a hey, you're okay. If
I
I
think
don't,
it's also
if Dawn doesn't hear from me for a while, she always texts me, you're right, still alive.
I think it's also remembering a lot of the time when people are struggling with their mental health, they often don't reply to you, or they don't reach out for help. They're often the people who they say no to everything, and they say,
Yeah.
"Oh no, I don't want to come out. This I'm too busy. I'm too busy." And actually,
Yeah.
it's not that they're too busy. It's just that they're down. They're struggling with life, and they're the people that you need to like check on
Yeah.
again.
And that check, I think that check would make all the difference though, isn't it? I think sometimes they just need that, right, I don't want to go out. I'm feeling really miserable, but it's just that, but somebody cares. Somebody
Yeah,
cares enough to check in, and no, they don't want to go out, they don't want to go to the pub, they don't want to do any of that. But thank you. Thank you
yeah.
for just making sure I'm okay. Because that can make all the difference. All the difference.
Ladies, another great session. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Shelley,
having me.
thanks for coming in.
Thank you for
Um,
having me.
we will speak to you later. We'll be here again next